Hello. The purpose of this video is to demonstrate how you can model a sophisticated Scotsman-based sales qualification process in the Snappy Sales Enablement tool. Whilst the creation of the model was a non-trivial activity, it's something that is doable, providing you have an understanding of the way a sales process can work and you have access and can use the Snappy authoring tools. Most people are familiar with the concept of the sales funnel, that if we put in enough prospects at the top, the law of averages will ensure that sufficient orders will drip out of the spout at the bottom. For many businesses, this simplistic way of doing things doesn't work, or is at best grossly inefficient, and a more professional approach is required, especially if the business involves high value or complex products where the profit margin is likely to be high. Consider this: every entry which sits on the CRM or in some other marketing system represents a cost, or shall we be positive for a moment, an investment by an enterprise. If we're sitting with an opportunity at the prospecting stage, then the amount of the investment might only be $5. At the end of the qualification stage, each opportunity may represent a $50 investment, and if an opportunity survives through to negotiation, then it may represent tens of thousands of dollars of work and effort. It's not uncommon for even really good companies to invest more in a prospect than they should, and only to find out at the negotiation stage that the prospect was never properly qualified and was never going to do business with you. The consequences of lazy qualification are very severe. Not only is money wasted on chasing the opportunity, but any forecasting that had been based on this prospect is flawed, and perhaps most importantly, other, better prospects may have got away. Scotsman is one of a number of sales qualification methodologies which evolved out of BANT: budget, authority, need, timescale. There's a particular desire amongst the folks who design these systems to make their names acronymic. Scotsman, like BANT, consists of a number of dimensions which need to be assessed. In addition to the 4 BANT dimensions, the design of Scotsman added in solution, competition, originality and size. They also changed the name of budget to money, as Scotsman is not such a great name. Once all the dimensions have been assessed, then a total score for the opportunity can be arrived at. This will inform you how likely you are to be able to win this opportunity and close the deal. The decision to adopt a sales qualification system such as Scotsman represents a big step forward by an enterprise, as it acknowledges there are better ways of doing things. Most Scotsman practitioners work on the basis of assessing each of the Scotsman dimensions on a 5-point scale, where 1 is bad and 5 is good. As an initial exercise, we have already implemented such a system into Snappy. The screen is now showing a simple Scotsman qualification workflow embedded within Salesforce.com. As you'll see, for each dimension there's a list of scores on offer, and the opportunity qualifier simply needs to select their choice. At a superficial level, this seems like a pretty good approach, and for many enterprises it's an ideal option. Quick to implement, quick to operate. However, adopting this approach does mask some potential problems and pitfalls. I think there are 3 problems with this approach to using Scotsman. The first issue is that everybody who is acting as an opportunity qualifier has to have a very high level understanding, not only in Scotsman, but also really top level questioning skills, a very clear understanding of the marketplace they're operating in, and a deep knowledge of the enterprise's own product offerings. Secondly, there needs to be a whole enterprise consensus as to what a 3 in originality means, because if Bob's rate of 3 is not the same as Sally's, then we have a problem in that we're using different rulers to measure our opportunities. The third issue is that the simple system assumes that raw Scotsman is perfect for every enterprise. I think it has a couple of flaws in, which we'll take a look at later. So, having identified some problems, we now need to think about what are the possible solutions. Fortunately, there is a common solution to the first 2 problems, and that is we can fix any lack of expertise and knowledge, and also remove ambiguity of interpretation by careful construction of the questions we're going to pose and the answers we can offer. To get the best raw material for the most effective question and answer workflows, enterprises need to harvest the knowledge of their top subject matter experts. Where an enterprise does not have this knowledge internally, there is a good business case for hiring in specialists. Before we start to look at the workflow in detail, it's appropriate at this point to install a health warning. The workflow I'm showing you is a demonstration framework, and whilst as a product it's intellectually robust and workable in its current form, it may not be appropriate for your business. So in addition to copyright limitations, you're using it at your own risk. The assumptions made in the workflow is that the enterprise is a medium-sized technology company and the qualifiers are experienced marketeers or sales reps. Let's kick off by looking at the solution question. The question text has been authored to fulfill two main objectives. Firstly, it should be clear and unambiguous to a user, and secondly, it should also be clear as to which element in Scotsman it's addressing. I would particularly like to draw your attention to the phrase customer's needs. It may seem blindingly obvious that the solution is judged by how well it addresses the customer's needs. But even in 2015, we keep hearing complaints from many sales leaders about the reps punting their favourite solution rather than taking the time to match a solution to the requirement. In the same vein, the answers have been written to be clear and also meaningful in terms of the enterprise. If we now focus in on the answers, you'll see they're following a pattern of first answer low score, last answer high score. Some people who design these Q&A type of systems like to mix up the answers to make sure that people are thinking carefully about which answer is the best response to a question. However, it's not my primary goal to catch people out who are guessing. I prefer an ordered list because if a respondee is ever in doubt, they can always use a bracketing approach to give the best answer. If you take a minute to look at the answers offered, you will notice that the basis on which the applicability of a solution to a given need is measured is in the light of the customer's requirements, which have been categorized as being either mandatory or nice to have. This mirrors the process which many customers will use in selecting a solution to ensure whatever they take is the best fit. I hope that studying the example of the solution criteria has given you some food for thought as to how you might build up your own questions and answers. I don't propose to go through the rest of the workflow with the same level of detail. If you want to know more, please download the document which accompanies this video or get in touch with us through snappy.io. What I'd like to do now is to focus on the third challenge that I identified, in that Scotsman itself is not flawless. Before exploring how Snappy can improve Scotsman, I think we need to put a bit of a real-world focus onto things. Scotsman is by no means unique amongst sales process systems in not being all things to all people. For many enterprises, the right way to go is to adopt a hybrid or a customization. The great thing about Snappy is it can support your business however you want to take it forward. I always like to start at the beginning. With Scotsman, we're drawn to start off with the solution criteria, and we follow it through with an examination of competition, originality, timescale, size, money, authority and need. Now this approach may have worked in the good old days when the thinking was, well, we've got a bunch of products, let's go out and sell them. But if you take a minute to think about it, that's kind of counterintuitive. Why are we worrying about a solution when we haven't yet assessed the need? If you adopt the Scotsman running order, then by implication you're trying to squeeze the need into the solution, which doesn't work no matter how big or blue you are. So in my workflow, I'm going to kick off with the need factor, because if we have no need, then we have no opportunity, and the qualification exercise should really stop there. You may well decide you want to move other elements of the Scotsman running order around. This is fine. It all depends on your business. And the great thing about using Snappy is that you can make these changes in the light of experience. And so, for example, if you think that you can only really evaluate competition after you've taken a look at authority, then change the order. Having done some work to improve the running order, I now want to move on and look at another potential weakness in Scotsman. So far we've talked about the 7 Scotsman dimensions and worked on the assumption that we can measure these to properly understand our opportunities. However, I have a different take on this. And my view is that some of the dimensions are better understood as clusters of dimensions. If we take a look at competition as an example, what is it we mean by competition exactly? To my mind, there are at least 2 aspects to competition which need to be separately assessed and then results combined to deliver a single competition score. The 2 aspects of competition that I would want to analyse are firstly in respect of the offers that the competitors are making. The second aspect of competition is a relationship that the competitors have with the customer. Having worked out which characteristics of competition I want to discover, then it's a matter of assessing each characteristic and then combining that assessment to give an overall score for the competition criterion. We can engineer this process in Snappy quite easily by creating a separate question and answer session for each aspect of the competition. In the case of my workflow, I have called the product dimension competition and the relationship dimension incumbent, progressing with my analysis of Scotsman. I have also concluded that there are a couple of different aspects to size that I want to take a look at. Firstly, the size per se of the likely order, and secondly, to understand if that order has a strategic dimension to it, which might mean that an opportunity which was otherwise out of scope would be worth following up on because it could lead to more business. This imperative can be handled in exactly the same manner as a competition issue. We first ask a question about the size of the order, then follow up with a strategic importance qualifier. I have addressed the three problems that I flagged up earlier, which existed in our previous implementation of Scotsman. Now what I'd like to do is to show you how the rich features in Snappy can create a workflow session which is both relevant and meaningful. You may recall a statement I made earlier when I said, if we don't have a need, then we don't have an opportunity. If it really is the case that there is no opportunity, then it doesn't make sense to invest any more time in it, including the current workflow activity. To help create smooth and efficient workflows, Snappy allows conditional branching. This allows you to set up rules which can change the flow through the workflow according to the answers the users choose. If we look at the first two answers for the need question, I hope you will agree with me that based on these answers, there's little point continuing with the qualification. Because answer 1 tells me that if I want to proceed, then I need to make the case for the need more robust, and answer 2 tells me just to bug out. Using the Snappy editor, I've created rules which say, if we can't determine a need, then there's no point in continuing through the workflow process. So instead, jump to an information section which will tell you what to do next. Okay, let's see what it looks like in practice. We're going to select the answer we don't understand the customer's business needs for this solution. Clicking on the yellow arrow now takes me to a point which basically confirms that I don't understand the requirements, tells me what I've got to do next. The next option I'm going to select is we know the need, but it's not a significant business requirement. This now takes me to some information which says the customer has no need, therefore there is no opportunity, therefore close this opportunity down, don't spend any more time or effort working with it. I've tried to give you a detailed explanation of the thought processes involved in creating this Scotsman model. Now I'm going to move on and demonstrate how you can use the Snappy authoring tools to implement it. It's appropriate to mention a caveat. It's not the purpose of this video to train viewers how to use the Snappy authoring tools. If you want to find out more about how to use them, please get in touch with us at snappy.io. I'm going to talk about stages now. It's important to understand how stages are used in Snappy. The stages in Snappy correspond to the stages in any sales process and are completely author/user configurable. As a point of reference, the stages that are defined in this workflow correspond to those specified in Salesforce.com, with one exception. I've added in an information stage to manage additional content.